last week, investigative agencies have gone the extra mile in cracking down on two promoters whose businesses aren't doing very well. The first, of course, was Naresh Goyal and his wife, who were pulled off a flight to Dubai as it was taxiing down the runway. The other is reports of a lookout circular being issued against the promoters of the beleaguered DHFL, who have denied these reports. Now, in both cases, the promoters have acknowledged that they are actively looking for ways and means to resuscitate their business. In Naresh Goyal's case, it is the lenders who are keen to get partners on board. There could be a valid argument that both companies, Jet and DHFL, have not been run as well as they could have. But was there criminality that led to the current state of affairs? And if there is no clear criminality established yet, are investigative agencies overreacting by issuing lookout circulars, or are they justified considering the precedent set by Vijay, Mallya and Nirav Modi? Speaking on this issue today are J.N. Gupta, former Executive Director, SEBI, and Charan Singh, CEO and Director, EGROW Foundation. Mr. J.N. Gupta, the basic question is, without any FIR or criminal complaint in place, do you think it's justified to issue lookout circulars, or do you think investigative authorities are perhaps overreacting?
See, I would say that it is very difficult for any one of us to say whether it is justified or not, because we do not know what is the full picture. So it is the full picture is only, or not even full picture is known to the investigative agency, otherwise they would not be investigating. So the issue is that without full picture, one view is that it is overreaction, other view is that it is a step in the right direction, because ultimately the government has a duty to safeguard the interest of all concerned, be it depositors, be it shareholders. So one would not know. But if you had looked at today's newspaper report, MCA says that it will decide on whether it has to do investigation further in the Jet Airways or not, based after the new government comes in. So we do not know what is the real picture. But the fact of the matter is that two cases, as you have mentioned, Jet Airways and DHFL, are not at all related or are not the same case. Jet Airways case is a case of two types. One is absolutely mismanagement, and other is a possible angle of diversion of fund. Because in Jet Airways, you would have seen the Jet Airways has been losing its market share for last 7-8 years, and it did not wake up the management at all. They lost their market share from 40+% to almost 12% to Indigo Airlines, and they had been losing money. So nobody bothered to understand why the airline was losing money when SpiceJet and Indigo was making money. So that means that is a case of inefficiency mixed with possibly diversion of funds. In case of DHFL, one, we do not know whether there is a diversion of fund or not. It will be found on the investigation, but it is certainly a case where the structural issue of the industry are important. A structural issue in the sense, when you see that all these companies were highly leveraged, and it is not a sole case. Everybody in the home finance company, everybody in the NBFC sector, everybody in the infrastructure sector is over leveraged. Coupled with over leverage, there was a massive asset liability mismatch issue, whereas all these companies had short term liabilities, whereas assets were very, very long term. So as long as they were able to rotate the funds from one party to another party, they were doing well. The moment some mishap happened, as it happened with ILFS, credit rating agencies withdraw rating or reduce the rating, and this spread to more sector, more companies, because one failure leads to another failure, and there is a cascading effect.
So I get your point, Mr. Gupta. I get your point. The only reason I put both of them in the same sentences because there's been action this week. There have been lookout circulars issued in both cases. And, you know, there has been this narrative that there has been this exemplary crackdown from government agents. The news is being tightened, you know, against willful defaulters and making sure that more economic offenders or fugitives are not created. Charan Singh, let me bring you into this conversation. Do you think that authorities are doing the right thing by being cautious and making sure that another Nirav Modi or Vijay Mallya doesn't case doesn't occur again? Or do you think that there is a bit of a wild goose chase going on here?
Well, as far as I am concerned, I am very clear on the Jet Naresh Goyal case. I am not very sure about the the Diwan housing. So, I will not get into the Diwan housing, but into the Naresh Goyal case and the Jet Airways, it is very obvious that there is something going wrong in the whole thing. There are various reasons for the jet to go down. Some of the reasons the previous colleague has just mentioned, that the share was not being taken care of, there was a deterioration in the operations and the share, that is fine. At this present juncture, and I have always maintained that even in my earlier interactions, that once a person leaves the country, getting the person back into the country means a lot for the national exchequer. It also means lots of litigation in a foreign court, and it also impacts the credibility of the country and its investigating agencies. Fighting it out in the UK court, talking about the condition of the prisons, this is so awful. The government is very right in its action. If somebody is leaving the country when there is obviously a case here, and the whole Jet Airways, the employees, 23,000 odd employees, 25 years of operation and going down the drain, and this is under litigation. The banks have taken over part of the operations, the jet airline is totally disintegrated, and the entrepreneur or the owner tries to leave the country. This is not fair practice. So, I think the Serious Fraud Investigating Office under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs was very correct when they realized that somebody is leaving the country, and they told them they can't leave the country. So, therefore, I do not think there is overreaction. I think this is the right policy. Rather, it has been raised in some quarters. Why were they allowed to go through? They should have been nabbed earlier.
No, I agree that part. I agree, Mr. Singh. That part was completely strange, because there was first reports that was the lookout circular put in place very last minute, or did an immigration officer not realize there was a lookout circular? Because if there is one, then how did they pass through and get to that space? That's still a bit of a mystery, to be honest. But Mr. Gupta, since we're speaking specifically about the Naresh Goyal case, now this is a situation where there is a hunt for a partner who can come in and the lenders can recoup some money. They have now, since this lookout circular and him being offloaded from the plane, there have been reports of an SFIO investigation and what the ED is looking for, but nothing emerged so far. Do you think that Naresh Goyal, from what we know so far, was a flight risk like Vijay Mallya or Nirav Modi?
See, as I already told you, that since we do not have the full picture, it will be very difficult for anyone of to say whether he was a flight risk or not. But the fact remains that airline has gone burst. As my previous colleague said, that employees are suffering, aviation sector is suffering, passengers are suffering, because they have to pay through their nose for this. So, the first priority for the government or for banks should be to put this airline back into the rails. As more and more time passes, it will become increasingly difficult to put the airline back into operation because of numerous factors, because once the market share is lost, it is very difficult to gain. That is one part. The second part is that while I maintain that anybody who has done anything wrong, anybody who has stolen a single penny of consumers or single penny of a customer or single penny of an investor, should got to pay the price, should got to restore the lost money, looted money. But the fact is this, you have to run a business in the country, and if you create a fear in everybody's mind, you are going to suffer much more, because the business will suffer. The issue is, how do we really distinguish between a genuine failure versus a fraudulent failure? One. Secondly, why we have been sitting till now and waking up till last moment? Why there is no system to examine it when the problem starts? As I told you, the jet was losing money, jet was losing market share, jet was doing every possible thing in the thing, and nobody woke up. We all woke up when the airline has gone fat. So everywhere, and as far as the NBFC sector is concerned, I have been maintaining it is the regulator's failure, because regulator never observed what is happening.
No, that's a good point. Charan Singh, do you have a counter to the point that Jayan Gupta is making? That are you creating an environment of fear? Because we are currently seeing a situation where a lot of businesses are not doing too well.
No. I think this is pretty ridiculous. On one hand, you say that you should have started right from the beginning. The day there was an early warning signal, there should have been a red alert and you should have pounced on the industrialist that very day. On the other hand, you say that why are you pouncing on a person, or why are you deplaning him when he is leaving? It's obvious. A long rope was given. The banks were also extending support. Despite giving the long rope, the industry did not recover. The entrepreneur, the owner is not bringing back the resources. What more can the government do? And in the industry, people are very much aware, and newspaper reports are there in sufficient in number, which do indicate that the balance sheet was not very clean. And there has been a genuine fear in the minds of many people that there has been siphoning of funds. The practices, the high commission given to certain places are all there in the newspapers. When there is a suspicion, when you enjoy good days, if you are a good citizen and bad days have come upon you, is it not appropriate that you wait and let the law take its own course? The worst thing that I see in our country, the business suffers, 23,000 employees suffer, the bankers suffer, and the industrialist has a very happy time. They are flying, their ownership of assets, their cars, their luxury, nothing impacts, and everybody else suffers.
Okay.
So
Mr. Gupta, come in on that. You know, Mr. Charan Singh, you've hit the nail on the head. You've hit the nail on the head in terms of what public perception is. But does business run that way? Yes, Mr. Gupta.
Okay, so I will say that probably he did not understand me correctly. I never said, I said first thing, anybody who has stolen a single penny should be punished. But the issue is, you got to decide, and that is what I am saying. We wait till the last moment. We cannot wait for the last moment. But again, I would say that there is a difference between a genuine business failure and a difference between a fraudulent failure. A genuine business failure, if you hound people who have genuine business failure, who have not stolen money, then the atmosphere for doing economic activity in the country will suffer, and we cannot let it happen. And the law will simply say that punish a person who is guilty, but don't punish a person who is not guilty. Newspaper reports cannot be a basis of hanging somebody or stopping somebody, because newspapers can make reports from here, there and everywhere. Newspaper reports are not factual. So unless until a law agency or investigative agency come to a conclusion, there I would say we got to improve our system, because we take ages in concluding anything.
Okay, let me Charan Singh, let me put this into context again. We're also looking at a time when, you know, Nirav Modi's departure from the country and Vijay Mallya's departure from the country became such a hugely political issue. Isn't it important to also see the action in that light and ask whether there is, you know, erring on the side of caution?
No, but this is so obvious an ostrich approach to a problem. MCA, the SFIO are swinging into action, and you are saying that there is nothing suspicious here. I am so surprised. The government is very much clear, and the very fact that they have swung into action, the banks have taken over, and you say there is nothing suspicious happening here. It's amazing that the banks who have sunk public money there year after year had to take this very hard decision, and still you want to say that there is nothing happening here. I am so surprised. And when a person leaves, and then there is the rest of the country yelling that how did you allow the person to leave? There are obvious cases being fought in foreign courts. Why should we let that situation happen, and why should our dirty linen be washed in UK courts? So even if there is a suspicion, and there seems to be more than a suspicion in these cases when the banks have swung into action and MCA has swung into action. I don't think. Now, there is a bigger issue which is very, very worrying to me, and this goes away all the time. I am really surprised in our country. This has to be taken seriously. If the business suffers, the businessman also should suffer. How come the bank's money, how come the employees suffer, but the businessman never suffers? Now, as far as the fear is concerned, when there is justice, even the business environment improves. The businessman also knows, and people who are investing in it also knows, and the banks also know that justice will be done.
Okay. If the business suffers, shouldn't the businessman suffer? Jayan Gupta, I just want you to respond to that, because you know it's actually distilled the entire debate. If the business suffers, shouldn't the businessman suffer? Because our corporate laws are not structured that way. But I just want you to counter that. Yeah.
I would say very clearly, if you would care to listen to what I said.
Governance?
Yes, Mr. Gupta, please just
if I can have my say, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. If you would care to listen to me, I had said that if anybody has stolen a single penny, he should be made to restore the money. So I am never saying that anybody who has made a merry of public money should be allowed to go scot-free.
Yeah.
The issue is very clear. You cannot run the economy or the country with fear alone. What I again say, that we got to tone up our legal system so that anybody who has done anything wrong can be brought to justice in no time. Here in our country, you take years after years, 3, 4, 5 years to even diagnose the problem. Then when you diagnose the problem, then you bring it to the legal system, which you take one generation.
No, absolutely.
So we got to tone up our system.
Yeah.
We have got enough laws. We have got enough laws.
It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope, undoubtedly, because tomorrow if there is wrongdoing and then we knew that, you know, Mr. Goyal or anyone else, XYZ flew off, then it was the same enforcement agencies that we would question. But are they preempting and painting everyone with the same brush? It's an important question because of how it affects business sentiment. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for joining us on the show today. We'll wrap India development debate here, but I'm leaving you with pictures of Congress leaders outside Rahul Gandhi's residence, persuading him, asking him to stay. Is this the way that the Congress is going to reinvent itself? A lot of food for thought as we end the show.